The Deep Space Research Station Varela 12 floated in silence near the edge of a dim red star. Its metal hull creaked from age, and the soft hum of old engines filled the narrow corridors. Inside, the alien officer Tivik hurried toward the communication chamber, his thin hands shaking as he worked the controls. He had never seen sensor readings like these before: sharp energy spikes, unknown signals, and strange distortions that looked like the beginning of a system-wide attack. The Frill Dominion, their longtime enemy, had been quiet for months, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before war returned. Tivik believed today was that day. He opened the emergency panel and typed in the distress signal code. His voice trembled as he spoke. "This is Varela 12. We request immediate assistance. Enemy forces expected. Please respond." The machine confirmed the message and sent it through the routing network. Tivik exhaled and stepped back, hoping the nearby ally empire would hear it in time. But as he waited, small warning lights flickered on the console. "Routing error. Signal redirected. Relay not recognized." Tivik frowned. The message was not going to the correct place. He tapped the panel again, but the system repeated the error. Shadows shifted around him as another alert flashed, signal amplified by ancient relay. "Unknown destination. Unknown receiver." The room grew cold. Across the station, other crew members began to notice strange readings on their terminals. A navigator shouted that the long-range scanners were detecting unusual energy waves. A technician reported that power levels were dropping for no clear reason. A low rumble spread through the floors, like a giant creature turning in its sleep. Tivik's communicator beeped. "Officer Tivik," the captain's voice said, sharp and tense. "What did you send? Our sensors are showing a massive reaction across 5-star systems. I sent the distress call." Tivik answered, but something redirected it. "I don't know who received it." The captain cursed softly. "Turn on visual scans. Now." Tivik pressed the sequence. The holographic screen blinked, then slowly displayed a map of the surrounding space. Lines of bright energy stretched outward from Varela 12, like chains reaching into the darkness. Several of the lines vanished into dead networks, old, forgotten systems abandoned thousands of years ago. No one used those connections anymore. They were considered unstable and unsafe. Another alarm sounded. The station shook. Tools clattered on metal tables. A technician yelled that a gravitational wave was forming outside their orbit. Tivik stared at the map. One lonely line of energy pulsed brighter than the rest. It reached beyond their known territory, past the borders of civilized space. Then it flickered and connected with something, a massive object hidden far away. Something too large to fit in normal scans. The symbol that appeared next to it was simple but terrifying. Unknown superstructure. Tivik's breath caught. The captain whispered, "What have we called?" No one knew the answer, but every alien on Varela 12 suddenly felt very small. In the engineering bay, a deep vibration shook the lights. Panels flickered. Energy levels spiked to dangerous heights. The crew grabbed onto rails as the station trembled. Someone screamed that a jump signature was forming, far too big for any normal ship. The air felt heavy, like invisible pressure was closing in from all directions. Then the starless dark outside the windows rippled. A bright crack tore through the void, like the sky itself was splitting open. Light burst outward in a huge arc, blinding the crew. Everyone covered their eyes as a monstrous shape pushed through the tier. It was so large that sensors failed to measure it. The ship's outline stretched far across their screens, layer after layer of armor, engines, and structures stacked like a floating city. The entire station fell quiet. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one even breathed. The crew simply stared at the vast shadow in front of them, the kind of shadow that belonged to something built for war, conquest, or pure survival. A whisper spread through the control room. "Deathworlders." Tivik felt his knees weaken. Legends told of humans, creatures from a deadly planet filled with storms, earthquakes, fire, and predators that hunted even during the night. The old stories claimed humans grew stronger through suffering. They fought like wild forces of nature, refused to die, and always pushed forward no matter the cost. Entire empires warned each other never to provoke them. And somehow, Varela 12 had accidentally contacted them. Lights across the station dimmed as the giant warship completed its jump. The shockwave rolled over the research base, rattling every bolt in the walls. Emergency lights came on. Several consoles sparked, but the ship held its position silent, unmoving, watching. Tivik swallowed hard. Did they come to help us? He asked softly, though he already knew the real fear shared by everyone aboard. What if humans thought the distress call was a threat? What if they believed the aliens were trying to lure them into a trap? A slow hum began from the center of the station's communication array. A signal was incoming. A message from the Colossal Warship. Every alien froze, staring at the console as the voice came through. Calm, steady, human. This is the United Human Fleet Vessel Horizon Breaker, the voice said. We received your distress call. Please confirm your situation. No one expected such a gentle tone from something so huge and powerful. Tivik's heart pounded. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the real story was only beginning. Fear spread quickly through Varela 12 after the Horizon Breaker arrived. Officers whispered in corners. Engineers worked with shaking hands. Every alien on the station felt a growing weight in their stomach, as if danger itself had stepped into the room. The old stories about humans returned to their mind, stories they once believed were exaggerated, but suddenly no longer seemed impossible. Tivik sat at his console, trying to steady his breathing. A few hours had passed since the huge human ship had arrived, yet no one dared move without permission. The station captain had ordered all crew to remain at their posts, speak calmly, and avoid anything that might look hostile. Even small actions like turning on a scanner or adjusting the shields felt risky, as if humans might think they were preparing an attack. What bothered Tivik most was how peaceful the human voice had sounded. It did not match the terrifying legends he grew up with. The stories described humans as relentless predators, always hungry for conflict, driven by instinct and madness. But the voice that contacted them had been steady, warm, almost friendly. How could such a massive warship, the size of a moon, speak with such calm humanity? In the command chamber, the captain and senior staff tried to understand the situation. We must assume they know everything, one advisor said. Humans are masters at reading data. They probably scanned our entire station the moment they arrived, another added. If they discover our fear, they may think we see them as a threat. That could create misunderstanding. The captain shook his head. We cannot pretend we are not afraid. They will sense it either way. Humans are known for intuition. Tivik listened quietly from his station. The room felt heavy, like the air had thickened. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, the captain sighed and ordered the communication link to open a second channel to the human warship. Tivik handled the connection. His hands trembled, but he managed to stabilize the signal. The human voice returned, just as steady and calm as before. Horizon Breaker standing by. Are you in danger? The captain tried to hide the tension in her voice. Yes, we believe the Frill Dominion is preparing to strike this system. Our distress call was meant for our allies, not for you. There was a short pause. Tivik assumed the humans were analyzing the truth of her words. Humans were famous for being able to sense lies. He imagined their sharp eyes, their firm expressions, and their strange, confident posture described in many old reports. Then the human voice replied, We understand. Do you wish us to leave? We came only because your message sounded urgent. Every alien in the room exchanged shocked looks. They had expected humans to act without asking, maybe even take command of the situation. But instead, the humans offered to leave. Such a simple question carried enormous weight. It meant control was still in the aliens' hands. They were not trapped. The captain hesitated, and Tivik felt her fear through the silence. If she asked the humans to stay, she would be inviting the most dangerous species in the known galaxy into their crisis. If she asked them to leave, the Frill might destroy them when the invasion began. Finally, she spoke. We request your help. If you are willing, understood, the human voice responded. We will assist. Tivik exhaled loudly, as if he had held his breath for minutes. Around him, other officers let out soft gasps or nervous sighs. The humans had agreed. The most feared species in the galaxy had become their defenders, but no one knew whether this would save them or bring more danger. As the hours passed, tension hung in the air like static electricity. Every small sound made someone jump, but beneath all the fear, something strange began to change. Some aliens started to notice things that did not match the old myths. A young engineer named Vora watched sensor logs and shook her head. "Look at this," she whispered to Tivik. "The human ship disabled some of our broken systems by sending repair signals through the station's core. They fixed things without asking for anything." Tivik frowned. "Why would humans help us beyond the distress call? Why would humans help us beyond the distress call? Maybe because they actually care?" Vora replied. Though the idea sounded unbelievable even to her, others noticed similar things. The humans calibrated the station's shield harmonics from a distance, making them stronger. They transmitted energy to stabilize the spinning gravity ring. They even sent a small, harmless drone to clear dangerous debris around the station so it would not hit them later. It was almost as if humans wanted the aliens to feel safe, yet fear still ruled the station. Whenever the huge human ship moved even a little, the alarms flickered and the crew froze. When the humans scanned something, the lights dimmed. And when the humans prepared to speak, it felt like the entire station held its breath. The alien council on the homeworld shared the fear. They contacted Varela 12 through a private encrypted channel, asking endless questions. Were the humans acting aggressive? Did they seem ready to attack? Were their weapons armed? Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Were humans planning anything beyond assistance? Tivik tried to answer honestly. "They are powerful," he said, "but they behave gentle." One council member replied sharply, "Deathworlders are never gentle. They hide their true nature until it serves them." Tivik ended the call with a deep sense of confusion. The council refused to believe humans could be anything but monsters, but Tivik had seen enough small details to doubt the legends. Still, fear stayed with him, because the legends were not wrong about everything. Humans were dangerous, unbelievably dangerous. Their ships were massive, their technology unmatched, their instincts sharp. They survived the impossible. They conquered the uninhabitable. They pushed through obstacles that would crush other species. A question burned inside Tivik's mind as he watched the horizon breaker floating outside, silent and patient. What kind of being has all that power, yet chooses to speak with kindness? And what would happen when the frill arrived? The answer, Tivik feared, would change everything. The horizon breaker drifted in silent orbit above Varela 12, but there was nothing peaceful about its presence. Every sensor on the alien station trembled when it moved. Even tiny adjustments from the human ship produced waves strong enough to make the station groan. It was like watching a moon glide through space with the precision of a surgeon. The aliens could not understand how something so large could move so gracefully. Tivik stood at his console, staring at the deep space display. The human ship filled most of the screen. Tiny lights ran across its armored hull, blue, white, red forming patterns he could not read. Some lights pulsed in slow, steady rhythms like a heartbeat. Others traced long paths over the surface, scanning for dangers even before the aliens could detect them. A message arrived from the humans. "Preparing for close approach," the voice announced calmly. "Close approach." Tivik's heart almost stopped. The ship was already close enough to block half the stars in the system. But before he could respond, the horizon breaker moved. It glided forward a few kilometers, slow and careful, like someone easing a giant beast toward a nervous child. The station vibrated, not from danger, but from awe. Even the ship's slightest thrust sent waves of gravity rolling across the platform. Vora muttered beside him, "How can something that big move that quietly? Our ships scream when we turn half as fast." Tivik had no answer. Watching the human warship felt like watching a mountain float through a dream. A second message followed. "We request permission to send a diplomat for direct communication." The captain turned pale. "A human here? On the station?" Legends claimed humans stood taller than most species, with strong bones and muscles adapted to brutal environments. Even their appearance was said to be unsettling. Forward-facing eyes, straight posture, a predator shape wrapped in soft skin. The captain cleared her throat and gave permission. Though everyone heard the fear she tried to hide, a small human shuttle detached from the giant ship. It was tiny compared to the horizon breaker, but still larger than any vessel the Varelan station normally received. It flew toward them with perfect balance, adjusting its path with tiny flashes of light. The craft docked smoothly, as if it had been designed specifically for their port. Tivik joined the group waiting near the landing hatch. The crew stood in a long line, trying to look formal but mostly looking terrified. Some clutched their hands behind their backs. Others kept their eyes glued to the floor that the docking clamps locked. The airlock hissed open. Warm, filtered air flowed into the corridor, carrying a faint scent metal ozone, and something else Tivik couldn't identify. Then the human stepped through. It was a woman, tall and strong but not monstrous. She wore a dark uniform with glowing lines along the shoulders. Her brown hair was tied back neatly. Her eyes were sharp but not cold. There was no aggression in her face, only calm awareness, like someone always ready to protect others. "I am Captain Arya Solon of the Horizon Breaker," she said with a small bow. "Thank you for receiving me." Her voice was the same steady voice they heard in transmissions, but hearing it in person made it different, real, powerful. The captain of Varela 12 bowed deeply. "We welcome you, Captain Solon. Your assistance is greatly valued." Tivik watched the human's expression carefully. She seemed sincere, even respectful, but there was something else to an intensity behind her eyes, like a flame burning quietly. Arya's gaze moved across the corridor, taking in every detail. "You have damage in your secondary power conduits," she said without being asked. "We can repair it remotely if you allow access." The aliens exchanged confused looks. How had she noticed that? The damage wasn't even visible from the corridor. They granted permission. Within seconds, the Horizon Breaker sent a small package of code that stabilized the failing conduits. Warning lights around the station turned green. This only made the crew more nervous. Humans were too observant, too capable, too. Everything. Arya was guided to the command room. As she walked, Tivik noticed how she moved quiet, balanced steps, constant awareness of her surroundings. It reminded him of the predators on his homeworld's old forests, the ones that could strike in silence. But Arya did not act like a hunter. She acted like someone carrying a heavy responsibility. Inside the command room, Arya studied the projected star map. "The Frill Dominion is moving faster than your reports show," she said. "Our sensors detected 3 fleets gathering near the outer systems. They will attack within 2 days." Gasps filled the room. The aliens knew the Frill were preparing, but they had expected a week at minimum. Humans had seen what they could not. Arya continued, "We will defend your station, but we need your cooperation. Your knowledge of the area will help us choose the correct engagement point." The captain nodded, though her hands shook. "We will do anything necessary." Arya smiled gently, so gently it confused Tivik. "Good. We prefer to avoid violence if possible. We want to protect life, not destroy it." That sentence shocked the room. The myths had never said humans preferred peace. Tivik stepped forward, unable to hold his question. "Why?" he asked. "Why respond to a distress call from a species you do not know? Why risk your huge ship for us?" Arya looked at him with a steady gaze. "Because someone asked for help," she said simply, "and humans answer calls for help." The room went silent, not from fear this time, but from something else, a quiet, unfamiliar feeling Tivik couldn't name. Hope. But that hope flickered as the sensors beeped with sudden urgency. The Frill fleet had just appeared on long-range scans. War was coming, and the Deathworlders were ready. The alarm klaxons echoed through Varela 12 as the Frill fleet appeared on long-range sensors. Red lights pulsed across the ceiling, washing the command room in a crimson glow. The station's crew scrambled to their positions, their movements quick but filled with fear. Tivik felt his throat tighten as he stared at the data on his display. Dozens of Frill ships, fast, sharp, and built for destruction, were moving toward the system at terrifying speed. Captain Arya Solon stood in the center of the room, calm as ever. Her eyes focused on the holographic map as she tracked the enemy formation. Even as panic grew around her, she did not look worried, only prepared. The Horizon Breaker hung silently outside the station, like a giant shield waiting to activate. The alien captain turned to her. "How long until they reach us?" Arya answered without hesitation. "4 hours, maybe less if they push their engines." She tapped her wrist console, sending a burst of data to the Horizon Breaker. "We will intercept them before they reach this orbit." Tivik swallowed. "Alone, against all of them?" "Not alone," Arya replied. "With you." Several officers blinked in confusion. They had no warships strong enough to help the humans. Their own vessels were slow scientific craft, not combat capable. Even if they launched support drones, it would be like throwing sand at a storm. Arya seemed to sense their doubt. "You will not fight," she said. "Your scans will guide us. Your knowledge of this system will help us move where the Frill cannot follow." Those words steadied the room. The aliens could help but from safety. It was a small comfort, but comfort still. Arya opened a direct channel to the Horizon Breaker. "Bring Defense Swarm online." Her voice was calm, but her tone carried steel. Tivik watched on his screen as the giant human warship lit up with bright rings of energy. Then, with a sound like distant thunder, hundreds of small shapes broke away from its hull. They were drones, sleek, fast, and nearly silent. Each one moved with smooth precision, as though they all shared a single mind. The drones spread out in a wide formation, forming a shifting pattern around the huge ship. It reminded Tivik of a living creature, like wings made of light and metal. An engineer whispered, "They move like they're thinking." "They are," Arya said simply. "Each drone can work alone or join the others. They adapt faster than most computer systems." The alien captain stared at her. These machines can disable an entire Frill fleet." Arya nodded. "If needed. But disabling is better than destroying." This stunned everyone. The aliens expected humans to annihilate threats without mercy. But Arya's plan was precise. Stop the Frill, not wipe them out. How could the most feared species in the galaxy be the ones holding back their strength? The Frill ships grew closer. Their engines burned bright against the dark of space. They were coming in tight formation, confident and aggressive. They believed Varela 12 had no defenders strong enough to challenge them. They were wrong. Arya stepped forward. "Begin engagement." The Horizon Breaker moved. No huge thruster flames, no roar. Just smooth, controlled movement, the kind that only advanced human engineering could produce. The massive ship glided toward the enemy like a rising shadow, drones circling around it in shifting patterns. The battle began with a flash of blue light. The human drones fired beams that were barely visible, thin lines of energy. Aimed with perfect accuracy, they struck the Frill ships not in vital areas, but in engines, shield emitters, and weapon ports. The enemy vessels jolted violently as their systems failed. Tivik gasped. "They're disabling them." One after another, Frill ships lost power and drifted helplessly. Not a single explosion. Not one fatal strike. The drones moved with surgical precision, hitting only what needed to be hit. But the Frill were not foolish. A second wave broke formation and fired everything they had. Bright green beams and missile trails filled the darkness, all aimed at the giant human ship. The Horizon Breaker's shields activated. A shimmering field unfolded around the massive hull, bending the incoming fire until it curved away harmlessly. Some missiles exploded on contact, but the shield didn't even flicker. Arya watched the displays. Adjust shield polarization. Keep their fire focused away from the station. Even under attack, she protected the aliens first. The drones swooped forward like a swarm of silver birds. They weaved between Frill blasts, dodging easily, striking again with pinpoint hits. Within minutes, half the enemy fleet was disabled. Some Frill ships tried to flee, but human interceptors moved faster, cutting off their retreat. Tivik felt a strange mixture of awe and disbelief. Humans fought with overwhelming force, but also with restraint. They showed power, but also judgment. They protected instead of destroyed. Everything he had been taught about them was crumbling. Then something changed. A Frill battleship not present in the earlier scans jumped into the system. It was massive, dark, covered in sharp armor plates. Its arrival sent shockwaves across every sensor in the room. The engineers gasped. That is a command vessel." Arya's eyes narrowed. "So they brought a flagship." The Frill command ship opened fire immediately, unleashing a beam of energy powerful enough to split asteroids. It struck the Horizon Breaker's shields, and this time, they flickered. Only for a moment, but enough for everyone to feel fear. Arya tapped her console. "All drones, focus on the command ship. We need to shut down their weapon core." The drones obeyed, forming a tight spiral around the massive Frill vessel. The enemy fired wildly, but the drones were too fast, too coordinated. They moved like a living storm, striking weak points one after another. In less than 1 minute, the Frill command ship powered down completely. The battle was over. Silence filled the command room. Tivik felt his heart pounding as he stared at the results. The humans had won. Without killing the enemy. Without destroying the system. With control so perfect it felt unreal. Arya finally turned toward the alien captain. "Your world is safe for now," she said. But this was only the beginning. Tivik shivered. If this was only the beginning, what were the Frill planning? And what would humans do next? The battle had ended, but the atmosphere inside Varel 12 did not lighten. Instead, the air grew heavier, filled with an uncomfortable tension. Even though the Horizon Breaker had disabled the Frill fleet with almost unbelievable precision, something felt wrong. Tivik sensed it in the silence between the beeping consoles, in the way Arya Solan stared at the star map without blinking, and in the sharp edge of every sensor report. The Frill did not attack with their full force. That alone was unusual. The command ship was powerful, but it wasn't their strongest vessel. It wasn't even close. The Frill were a ruthless species, proud of their power. They never held back in battles they intended to win. Tivik watched Arya carefully as she scanned the data again and again. She stood completely still, hands behind her back, her eyes cold with calculation. She looked like someone putting together a puzzle with dangerous missing pieces. Vora stepped beside Tivik and whispered, "She is not relieved at all." "No," Tivik murmured. "She is worried." Arya suddenly spoke. "Show me the energy signature of the last Frill jump." The screen displayed a long, jagged burst of data. Most of it looked normal standard jump energy, typical Frill engine traces. But near the end of the reading, a strange curve appeared. It bent sharply downward, then spiked again before disappearing. Tivik frowned. "What is that?" Arya answered without turning her head. "A shadow echo." No one understood. The alien captain hesitated. "I have never heard that term." Arya finally looked at them. A shadow echo occurs when a ship is hiding something inside its jump field. Something large. Something that is not supposed to be detected. The room fell silent. Vora's voice trembled. "Are you saying the Frill were hiding another ship?" "Not a ship," Arya said softly. "A weapon." Her gaze returned to the map, and something in her expression shifted fear, but mixed with determination. Tivik felt a chill run through him. Humans feared very few things. If even Arya looked worried, then whatever the Frill were hiding must be beyond anything the aliens had seen before. One of the science officers stepped forward. "What kind of weapon?" Arya paused for a long moment before answering. "We call it a singularity lance. It tears space instead of firing energy. If the Frill have built their own version, they could destroy this entire system in minutes." Gasps filled the room. Some crew members backed away from the displays, as if distance could protect them from the idea alone. A weapon that could tear space? That wasn't warfare. That was erasing reality. Tivik felt his heart beating faster. But why didn't they use it? Arya's eyes hardened. Because they want a clear path. They want to know exactly where to strike. She pointed to the star map. "They tested your defenses. They tested ours. They now know what the Horizon Breaker can do. Their next move will be with the Singularity weapon, and they will not miss." The alien captain swallowed. "Then we cannot protect the station." Arya turned toward her, voice steady. "Not with your technology. Not alone." Tivik felt a strange, sharp pain in his chest. Fear, but also frustration. His people were brilliant researchers, peaceful explorers. They had built observatories, habitat domes, floating gardens, but never war machines. They had believed knowledge would protect them, that cooperation would solve problems, that the galaxy had outgrown the need for brutality. But the Frill did not care about peace or knowledge. They cared only about domination. Arya lifted her wrist device and tapped a small control. A hologram appeared above her hand, a map of deeper space, showing human territories, outposts, and fleet paths. "We have limited time," she said. "The Frill weapon must be destroyed before they bring it into firing range." Tivik stared at the glowing map. The humans had already calculated dozens of potential jump points. They had highlighted where the Frill might hide. They had marked safe zones, danger zones, and countless small strategic details that Tivik barely understood. You knew this was coming. Tivik said quietly. Arya nodded. We suspected. The Frill have been rising in power for years. We knew they would eventually build something like this. Vora stepped forward. Why didn't you warn us sooner? Arya studied her, then answered in a softer tone. Because you were not supposed to be involved. This part of space was meant to stay far from the conflict. But your distress signal changed everything. Tivik lowered his head. That mistake, the accidental signal, had dragged his people into a war far beyond their abilities. And yet, without that mistake, the Frill might have attacked with their super weapon already. Without warning, without hope. The alien captain approached Arya, her voice shaking. If we agree to help, what do you need from us? Arya's eyes softened with respect. Your knowledge of the nebula fields. The Frill weapon is too unstable to fire inside a dense energy cloud. If we guide them into one, even for a moment, we can overwhelm their defenses. Tivik blinked. You want us to lure the Frill into the Emberfall Nebula? Yes, Arya said. You know the nebula's path. Its storms, its currents. Humans cannot pilot through it alone. But you can. Humans cannot pilot through it alone. But you can. Silence spread through the room like a slow wave. Tivik imagined the Emberfall Nebula's swirling mass of red and gold storms, filled with lightning that lasted for days. Ships entered carefully and moved slowly. Even small errors caused massive damage. Human ships were advanced. But navigating a nebula required instincts, not power. The alien captain straightened her back. We will help you. Arya bowed her head. Then we have a chance. Tivik breathed shakily. A chance, not safety, not survival. Just a chance, but for the first time that day. That was enough. The horizon breaker prepared for its next move. And Tivik realized something strange. Humans were terrifying, yes, but when they stood beside you, the entire galaxy felt less impossible. And now, they were going to fight a weapon capable of tearing space itself together. The Emberfall Nebula glowed like a storm made of fire as the horizon breaker approached it. Red and gold swirls twisted through the darkness, flashing with streaks of lightning that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Tivik stood at his console inside Varel bridge, watching the view through a relay feed. The nebula was beautiful, but it was also deadly. No Frill ship would willingly enter it. No sane pilot would, which was exactly why the humans wanted to draw their enemy inside. Captain Arya Solon stood on the screen, transmitted live from the Horizon Breaker's command deck. Her face remained calm, but Tivik could see tension in her eyes, sharp, focused, unshakable. The Frill fleet was regrouping outside the system, waiting for their superweapon carrier to arrive. At any moment, they might detect the humans' plan. We must move before they complete alignment, Arya said. Their singularity weapon needs stable space. If we force them into the nebula, even briefly, the weapon's core will destabilize. And that destroys the weapon? The alien captain asked. No, Arya said. That gives us a window to board it. Tivik froze. Board it. Send humans onto the ship carrying a weapon that could tear space apart. It sounded like madness, but humans were known for doing insane things and surviving. Arya continued, we will lead the Frill command vessel here. Once inside the nebula currents, they will lose tracking control. That's when our marines will strike. Vora whispered to Tivik, they plan to fight inside the storm? Tivik nodded, stunned. Humans were unbelievable. They fought like they had no fear of death. Or maybe they just accepted it differently. The Horizon Breaker positioned itself at the edge of the nebula. Its drones formed a protective shell, each one bright and polished against the swirling storm. The ship glowed with power as it began projecting a false energy signature 1, designed to resemble the station's core reactor. The Frill will think we are trying to hide you inside the nebula, Arya explained. They will chase us. It was risky. The Frill were aggressive and cunning. They preferred open attacks, but adapted quickly when needed. If they suspected a trap, everything would fail. Minutes passed. Then the sensors screamed. Dozens of Frill ships ripped into real space behind the Horizon Breaker, weapons already firing. Their formation was tighter than before, angry, determined. And in the center of their fleet hung a massive vessel, black, angular, pulsing with strange light. The carrier of the Singularity Lance. Tivik stared in horror. The weapon looked like a huge eye, with swirling darkness at its core. It didn't look built. It looked grown. Arya's voice sharpened. They brought it. All units, prepare for nebula entry. The horizon breaker dove into the glowing storm. Lightning arced across the nebula, striking the human ship with bursts of blue fire. The shields flared, absorbing each impact. The drones rearranged themselves, forming a barrier that cut a safe path through the dangerous currents. Behind them, the Frill fleet followed, struggling to hold formation as the nebula's gravity twisted around them. The Singularity carrier pushed forward, almost eager to fire, but the nebula reacted violently to the weapon's unstable core. Energy waves rippled through the enemy ship, forcing it to slow down. The nebula did not allow perfect stillness. Space stretched differently here, refusing to be controlled. Arya gave the order. Now, launch. Human drop pods blasted from the horizon breaker, small, fast, burning through the nebula like falling stars. The pods twisted and spun to avoid lightning arcs. Tivik watched their trail with awe. How could humans remain so calm inside such chaos? The pods smashed onto the surface of the Frill carrier. Explosive bolts fired. The hatches burst open. Human Marines emerged, and Tivik finally understood why humans were feared. The Marines moved like shadows in thick armor, their steps heavy but coordinated. Their suits glowed with lines of shifting energy that pushed away the nebula's electrical storms. They carried tools, weapons, devices Tivik didn't recognize. The nebula's glow reflected off their helmets, making them look like creatures from ancient nightmares. The Frill soldiers tried to stop them, but the Marines advanced without hesitation. Their movements were swift, efficient, no wasted effort, no fear. They avoided lethal shots, choosing to disable instead. Even here inside the storm, they fought with restraint. They don't kill unless they must, Tivik whispered. Even now, Vora nodded slowly. They fight like they've done this 1,000 times. Inside the Frill carrier, the Marines cut through sealed doors and hacked into control nodes. The Singularity lance thrummed louder, glowing with unstable energy. If it activated here, inside the nebula, it would tear everything apart: the humans, the Frill, the nebula, the station, maybe even the system. Arya's voice guided them. Find the core stabilizer. It will be marked with 3 converging lines. Remove the stabilizer, and the weapon shuts down. Tivik held his breath. A squad reached the core chamber. They blasted the door open and froze. The core wasn't a machine. It was alive. A swirling mass of dark matter, contained by Frill technology, pulsing like a giant heart. The stabilizer was a living organ attached to it. The Marines hesitated only 1 second. Then they moved. They cut the stabilizer free, sparks flying everywhere. The core shrieked. Tivik heard it through the sensors, and the entire carrier shook violently. The weapon began collapsing inward, unable to hold itself. Arya spoke sharply. Extraction, now. The Marines launched grappling hooks, pulling themselves back toward their pods. Lightning tore through the nebula as the Singularity core folded in on itself. The Frill ships panicked, scattering in every direction. The horizon breaker surged forward, shields burning white, catching the pods with magnetic nets. The core collapsed. A silent flash spread through the nebula, pulse of light and darkness mixing. Then the storm swallowed everything again. The Singularity weapon was gone. Tivik exhaled slowly, his entire body shaking. They had survived something impossible, and the humans had done it not with destruction, but with control. Arya Solon appeared on the screen once more, calm again, though her face showed exhaustion. It's done, she said. The weapon is destroyed. The crew of Varela 12 cheered, not loudly, not wildly, but in a trembling, relieved way, like people waking from a nightmare. But Arya wasn't smiling. The Frill will return, she said quietly. Stronger, angrier. Tivik's voice shook. What do we do now? Arya looked at him, not as a warrior, not as a Deathworlder, but as a protector. Now, she said, we prepare for the next fight, together. News of the destroyed Singularity weapons spread across Varela 12 faster than any alarm. The station's crew walked through the halls in a daze, still trying to understand that they were alive. Some cried with relief. Others sat in quiet corners, staring at their trembling hands. No one felt untouched by what happened. Space had almost been torn apart. Their entire system had nearly vanished into nothing. And yet, they were still here. But survival did not bring peace. Tivik felt the tension long before official reports confirmed it. The Frill fleet had withdrawn, but not out of defeat. They were regrouping beyond the nebula, gathering more ships. Their communication bursts carried emotions Tivik did not need translation for: rage, humiliation, and an unrestrained desire for revenge. The humans had wounded their pride. The Frill would not forgive that. The alien captain stood in the command chamber, her hands clasped tightly. She stared at the star map where Frill signals flickered like dark sparks. "They will attack again," she said, "and we have no more nebula storms to hide behind." Tivik swallowed. "What are our options?" Before anyone could answer, the screen came alive with the calm face of Captain Arya Solon. She looked tired. There were faint lines under her eyes, and her uniform bore scorch marks from the nebula lightning, but her posture was as straight and steady as always. "Our scans confirm the Frill are gathering reinforcements," she said. "They intend to strike soon, harder than before." The alien captain nodded. "We have no chance of stopping a second attack." Arya hesitated. For once, she seemed unsure how to speak. "There is another option," she said, "but it is risky." The room grew silent. Even the ship's hum felt quieter. Arya projected a hologram into the center of the room. It showed a massive structure towering, circular, glowing with rotating rings. Tivik stared at it, confused. It looked like a gate to somewhere far beyond known space. "This is the Aegis Gate," Arya said. "It belongs to the United Human Fleet. It is a mobile fortress that protects worlds under human care." Tivik blinked in shock. "You can call this here care." Tivik blinked in shock. "You can call this here